Maniacs, take two.
Take two.
Dose. And this maniac, I think this is like a convoluted maniac. I'm just going to call the maniac Trump. We're going to do Trump hyphenated Flynn leaks.
I mean, you could just go Trump White House drama, or Trump White House in turmoil, perhaps.
White House in turmoil.
Yeah.
White House in chaos.
In chaos.
So there's been a number of press conferences this week who are focused
on a variety of topics, including Donald Trump somehow still criticizing Hillary Clinton.
Right. But this one is around Mike Flynn, who, resigned on Monday. The president, I mean, here's the thing. And we've talked, this leak situation is a situation that is beyond, it's a situation. So in the White House East Room on Monday, President Trump held a news conference with Canadian Prime Minister that was standard and drama-free. But Dana Bash, who's a reporter for CNN, went behind the scenes a little bit. Multiple Trump sources described aides as worried that they're not, at any given day, they could get fired because of a leak or because another White House staff may be out to get them. In fact, some campaign aides initially upset about not getting jobs inside the White House now say they are relieved that they're not at the White House.
I could have told you that.
As for the White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, sources inside several Trump folks basically saying, it's not going that well, but people call him weak. Yeah. But Trump continues to say he's doing a great job. He said it again on Thursday. On Thursday, he said, Reince is a smart guy. He knows how Washington works. Sadly, he spends way too much time putting out fires. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, so if he spends too much time putting out fires, why are there fires to begin with? Who's starting these fires?
Right. I mean, here's the thing. Like, this internal turmoil within the White House, for me, I read it as just huge inexperience going into it and a lack of understanding even about the basic job description of being president. Donald Trump did not understand. I mean, maybe he should have brought his Trump Organization HR manager with him because he did not know who to hire to make the White House run smoothly.
So here's the thing, and I mean, usually the role of chief of staff, a lot of times people call it co-presidents, because you might have the president out there doing a public thing, and the chief of staff is usually the chief of staff has to run the government.
Right.
Like all the agencies, all that stuff, right? And what we're finding is that, basically Reince spends most of his time following Trump around, like, a dad to a newborn baby, right? So he's with the president a lot. Even as Trump keeps his relentless, crazy schedule with all these photo ops, Priebus is almost always there. The chief of staff's critics argue he should be spending more time making the White House function. Right. But sources say Priebus wants to be at the president's side for one important reason. President Trump is firmly in charge of the White House from the big picture to in the weeds decision, and Priebus feels he needs to be there every step of the way. This Donald Trump reminds me, like what I sense is that he reminds me he's very much like Jimmy Carter in style. Like he wants to know everything that's happening.
Trump does?
Yeah. Like he wants to know every step.
He's not even reading his memos.
No, I don't think he's reading his memos, but I think he makes decisions on the fly based on information he receives at that particular moment. And so if you're the chief of staff, your job is to figure out what decision he made. And I'll give you a great example. So at the Thursday press conference, from folks who were in the room, say you saw like senior aides to the president, there aren't very many of them,
right,
were like busy scribbling down everything he was saying because
are these policy proclamations? Yeah. Do we need to start doing this?
And I'm pretty sure to defend Reince for a little bit, I'm pretty sure like he wakes up in the morning at his house and he's like, all right, let me go on Twitter and see what this fool done said today. Because that's gonna dictate the day.
I agree with that completely. I mean,
right?
The reason he's following him around is because Donald Trump basically speaks what he wants to have done in an offhand manner,
but that is not how you can. This is not. Remember, first of all, this is government, so it doesn't move as fast as a company.
Right.
Right. And yes, President Trump is the CEO of the government. One would argue. But it's a little bit more complex, right? You're dealing with the lives of 300 and some odd million people.
Right.
So there has to be a little bit more management. I think the reason why the White House is such chaos is because there's nobody there. I mean, I have a couple of sources close to the White House, they'll remain nameless, but they've said to me over and over again that the EEOB, which is the building right next door to the White House, right, which is where a majority of the White House staff work, right? The White House is not a big place. It's a very, very, very small building for the fact that we're such a very large country. And what I've been told is that the EEOB is like empty. When I mean empty, like you can hear a pin drop.
Right.
Like there's like, and usually under the Obama administration, I can say from experience, when you walk into EEOB, people are like working on top of each other. Like there'll be a room. Our studio is not a very big studio, but like in this studio space, there'll probably be like 7 people working in here. People will have like corners. I mean, I remember one of my friends, I remember visiting him, and his office was like in the hallway, like like next to a wall, and he had like literally like a table and a computer, and that was it. So I heard this White House, there's not very many staff there. I mean, you have somebody, you cannot be, well, I guess you can because Sean Spicer's doing it, but you can't be the communications director and the press secretary at the same time.
I mean, that's a huge mistake. Like, I mean, we haven't even touched about that on the Fowler show, but those are 2 separate jobs that are beyond full-time. Like, if you look at the Obama administration and you looked at what the press secretary did and the communications director
they work together.
They work together.
But they do 2 separate, I mean, the job
they are 200-hour-a-week jobs.
And they do 2 separate things, because the job of the press secretary is to be the secretary to the press, informing the press. But remember, you do your briefing at 2 o'clock, but you spend all day talking to different cabinet heads, talking to all the people to basically get enough information to do the briefing. Right. When the briefing is over, you get questions submitted to you. Then you spend all the rest of the day answering the questions from journalists. The job of the communications director is to manage all the communications director for the entire government, because remember, every agency has a communications director. And then sometimes within an agency, like, so within HHS, you have the CDC, and they have a comm director. So you have layers and layers of bureaucracy, and you have to manage the entire message and the entire strategy for the federal government. That's the communications director's job. The press secretary's job is to interface with the press and to carry out that strategy. I don't know how Sean Spicer has managed to do them both for the past 30 days. I mean, I would have passed out and died.
I mean, my read is he's not doing, because
they don't.
I mean, you really can't. And I think Donald Trump secretly wants to be the communications director himself.
And you can't.
But that's not a thing. I mean, the president's schedule, as it should be done, or as it historically has been done, is you are basically up and at 'em for about 14 hours a day. Now we've seen
your job is to be the president. Your job is not to be the communications director. The communications director sets the strategy. And what we can tell very clearly is that this White House doesn't seem to have a very clear narrative. They don't have very clear, like the talking points are all over the place. They don't have a clear path.
Yeah, when you see their surrogates coming out and contradicting themselves, you know that the communication is not lined up right.
It's not lined up.